The floors always went first. Miguel Reyes rolled his cart into the center of the Riverside Grand Ballroom and stopped letting the empty rooms settle around him. No guests yet. No clinking glass. No roar of conversation. Only the steady hum of the air conditioning and a piano testing soft chords on the stage. He liked this hour. The room was quiet, unnamed, not yet claimed by anyone in a suit. Chandeliers hovered over him, tiers of crystal waiting to catch the night. White cloths draped the round tables. By midnight, the cloths would be stained, the crystals would burn with reflected light, and someone would swear it had been an unforgettable evening. In the morning, Miguel would sweep away the proof. He parked the cart near the wall and wrung out the mop. Water dripped back into the yellow bucket, quick taps against plastic. He stepped onto the polished wood and let the mop glide ahead of him in a slow arc. Left pull turn, left pull turn. His shoulders eased into the rhythm. On stage, a sound tech tapped a microphone. Check, check. The words bounced off the ceiling and faded. Under the echo, Miguel heard a thin whine, just sharp enough to make his teeth ache. He paused, searching the speaker stacks. One of the smaller units near the back buzzed a sliver of feedback most people would miss. He leaned the mop against a chair and crossed the floor. The sound tech barely glanced at him as Miguel reached behind the speaker and nudged the cable. The whine vanished. "Appreciate it," the tech said, already turning back to his board. Miguel nodded and walked away. From the mirrors along the walls, his reflection flashed and disappeared as he moved. Dark work pants, gray polo with the hotel logo, boots flattened at the heels, hands roughed by bleach and hot water. He checked his watch. 2 hours until doors opened. Tonight was Wardline Systems Night, the gala the hotel had been talking about all week. Their logo already glowed on the giant LED screen behind the stage, blue and white, above the words Wardline Charity Gala lighting the future. The future from where he stood looked like a lot of glassware. Servers drifted in with racks of wine glasses that chimed when they bumped. Someone wheeled in trays of silverware wrapped in white napkins. The air picked up new scents, polished lemon cleaner perfume that lingered behind a woman in a black dress as she crossed the room and disappeared behind a curtain. Miguel stayed in his lane. People rarely saw a man with a mop unless water ended up on their shoes. Housekeeping. The voice came from his left, clear and controlled. He looked up. She stood by the entrance tablet in one hand, the thin strap of a security badge catching light at her shoulder. In person, Elena Ward looked exactly like the photos in the staff hallway had promised. She seemed built for stages, not for hotel carpets. The CEO of Wardline Systems wore a dark blue dress that moved in clean lines when she did. Her hair was pinned up smooth at the front, a few strands curling at her neck. Her eyes skimmed the ballroom while a man with a headset trailed behind her. "These tables need to come up 3 feet, she said. "I want the donors inside the frame when we cut to the video, and the chandeliers at 50% once everyone is seated." The man murmured agreement and headed toward the lighting booth. Only then did her gaze slide to Miguel. "You are with housekeeping." "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I will have this section dry before 6. Her eyes dropped to the mop, then to the floor between the front row of tables and the stage. "Good. No carts in here once we start letting people in." He nodded. She moved on. Miguel shifted his focus to the front half of the room, working a little faster. He watched where her shoes had clicked past and made sure every plank there was clean and dry. The wood caught the first test beams from the lighting rig and sent them up toward the crystal overhead. Flower arrangements arrived a few at a time, carried by staff with careful hands. Tall glass vases caught the moving lights and threw slivers of color onto the white cloths. The lighting team cycled through palettes: cool blue, warm amber, a sharp red that made the nape of Miguel's neck tighten before it softened again. He wrung out the mop once more. His lower back complained as he straightened, then settled into a dull ache. It was a feeling he knew well enough not to resent anymore. "You on double tonight, Reyes?" The night supervisor passed with a clipboard. "Looks that way," Miguel said. "They want everything flawless," the supervisor said. "Big donors, cameras." He moved on. Miguel pushed his cart against the wall and slid the mop into place. The ballroom had transformed around him without fanfare. Centerpieces stood ready. Candles waited in polished holders. Place cards listed names he recognized from headlines, though he could not have said which face belonged to which company. On stage, a rehearsal video lit the screen. Footage of stadiums glowing at night, crowds moving under perfect sound. Elena's recorded voice filled the room, smooth and steady as she narrated Wardline's rise. He saw her in one of the mirrors watching herself on the screen. Her posture remained straight, every inch of her in control, but for a heartbeat her shoulders softened. A staffer stepped up with a folder, and the softness vanished. Miguel bent to pick up a stray napkin from beneath a chair. Details were his work: sticky rings on glass, glitter ground into grout, scuffs that had to disappear before the next set of strangers claimed this room. The doors at the far end opened again. A draft of cooler air touched his face. Voices spilled in from the hallway, layered and rising, and among them he caught a smaller sound that did not fit. Not glass, not cutlery, not music. It was quick and irregular, like bare heels tapping out a private rhythm just out of sight. Miguel paused and listened. He followed the sound to the open doorway. From the ballroom, the hallway looked narrower than it really was. The carpet ran in a dark red strip toward a bank of elevators' walls, lined with framed photos of the hotel through the decades. At the far end, where the light from a wall sconce pooled in a softer circle, a small girl sat on a bench upholstered in gold fabric. She could not have been more than 8. Her feet did not quite reach the floor. Her heels bumped to the front edge of the bench in a steady private rhythm. She wore a white dress that puffed at the skirt and sagged slightly at one shoulder, like she had twisted away when someone tried to straighten it. Silver headphones rested over her ears. In her hand, pinched between thumb and forefinger, she rolled a smooth gray stone back and forth. Miguel stayed just inside the ballroom, unseen behind the frame of the door. Staff moved past him with trays and garment bags, eyes on their tasks, not on the hallway. The girl's eyes were fixed on nothing in particular. They settled on the edge of a picture frame, then drifted to a scuff on the baseboard, then up to the light above her. Every time the bulb flickered, the muscles at the corner of her mouth tightened. "Elena, she is still out here?" The hotel's event coordinator stood in the middle of the hallway, holding a clipboard. Miguel had seen her around enough to know the efficient way she used her voice. Now that voice softened. Elena Ward stepped into view. The blue dress she wore in the ballroom looked darker in the hallway light. She glanced back once toward the main room, where more staff were adjusting floral arrangements, then turned her full attention to the girl. "Lily," she said. "Hey, sweetheart." The girl did not look up. Her heels kept tapping. The stone rolled. The headphones stayed in place. Elena crossed the distance between them in a few quick steps. She crouched in front of the bench, knees close together so the dress would not wrinkle. Her hand reached up, hesitated at the side of the headphones, then dropped to her own lap instead. "It is getting close to start time," the coordinator reminded her. "We need you in the ballroom in 10, Ms. Ward." "I know," Elena said without looking away from her daughter. "Give us a minute." The coordinator disappeared toward the doors. Miguel watched the way Elena's back curved, the way her shoulders rounded in a way they had not in the ballroom. Close up, she looked less like the person on the promotional videos and more like any other parent he had seen sitting in pediatric waiting rooms. "Too many people out there," Elena said gently. "I get it, but this is our event, our foundation. I want you to see it, just for a little while." Lily's fingers paused on the stone. She blinked twice, slow and heavy, as if her eyes needed time to catch up with everything around her. Her gaze flicked toward the open ballroom door. Light from the chandeliers spilled out bright and white, making the hallway fixtures seem dim by comparison. From inside, the band shifted from scales to a brisk piece of jazz. The bass line carried through the doorway, a steady thump under the brighter saxophone notes. Lily's heel taps lost their rhythm. For 3 beats, her feet were still. Then they started again faster. Elena reached up and tapped the side of the headphones. "You hear this okay?" she asked. "It is not too loud?" Lily's lips moved without sound. Her free hand came up to cover the right ear cup, pressing it harder against her head. "Remember what Dr. Patel said?" Elena's voice was careful. "We practice. Little doses. You can keep the headphones on." She slipped her hand over Lily's knuckles and gave them a quick squeeze. It was an attempt at comfort and at control at the same time. Lily flinched. The stone almost slipped from her grip. She caught it in her palm and held it, fingers clamping tight until her knuckles whitened. Her body tilted a fraction away from her mother. Elena noticed. Her hand retreated and a small exhale left her. "I am not going to make you talk tonight," she said. "You do not have to say anything to anyone. You can just stay near the wall and watch. And if it is too much, we leave. I promise." The words sounded rehearsed. Miguel thought about the way parents practice things in their heads before saying them out loud, hoping the right script would smooth whatever came next. A couple in evening wear walked down the hall laughing quietly, then fell silent when they saw Elena. The woman's smile widened. "Ms. Ward." "I did not mean to interrupt," she said. "My husband and I are so honored to be here. The new stadium contract that is all anyone in my office talks about." Elena straightened, without fully standing up, caught between two worlds. Her hand tightened around the edge of the bench. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We are excited about the project." The husband glanced at Lily. "And this must be your daughter. You are a lucky girl. Your mother is going to light up the whole country." Lily stared past him, eyes resting on the tie pin at his collar, then sliding away. Her shoulders climbed higher. "She is shy," the woman said, still smiling. "Mine was too at that age. She grew out of it." Elena's jaw tensed. "Enjoy the evening," she answered, the words measured. When the couple went through the ballroom doors, their laughter resumed. Miguel looked at Lily. The stone had started moving again, circling inside her fist, small and precise. Her headphones sat just a little crooked on her head now. One side pressed deep, the other slightly lifted as if she wanted to hear and not hear at the same time. Elena bent closer. "I know it feels like a lot," she said quietly. "You did so well at the clinic last week. Maybe this can be like that. You remember the waiting room with all the fish pictures?" Lily's mouth tightened. Her tongue pressed against the inside of her cheek and stayed there, a small bulge that made her look younger. Miguel felt his own tongue mimic the motion for a second. He had seen Lucas do it when something inside his head was too bright or too loud. The memory rose without permission. Lucas in a grocery store at 4 hands clamped over his ears, feet planted in the cereal aisle. Miguel standing over him with a basket and a face burning with embarrassment. The fluorescent lights, the buzzing refrigerator units, the stranger who sighed, "Some of us disciplined our kids." He had believed that once, that his son was a problem to be fixed. The thought tasted bitter enough that he swallowed hard. A banquet server brushed past his shoulder, carrying a tray of folded napkins. "They want guests on the red carpet in 15, she said to no one in particular. Miguel stepped back through the doorway, out of the direct line of sight. His cart stood where he had left it. He picked up a glass that was slightly smudged and wiped it on a clean bar towel, more for something to do than because it needed it. In the hallway, Elena straightened all the way. She smoothed the front of her dress with both hands, then held one out to Lily. "Come on," she said. "Just to the doorway. We will stand near the back. No one will bother you." Lily's shoulders lifted once, then dropped. She slid off the bench toes, searching for the carpet. Her hand did not go to Elena's. Instead, she wrapped her fingers tighter around the stone and kept the other hand on the side of her headphones. They walked together toward the ballroom. Elena kept her pace slow, matching the short steps beside her. At the threshold, Lily stopped. From this angle, the room looked larger than it had from inside. Light spilled from 10 chandeliers. The screen behind the stage glowed, cycling through Wardline's logo shots of city skylines, stadiums, bridges lit at night. Staff moved faster now, chairs scraping softly, silverware clinking. A string quartet had taken the stage and was tuning. The first notes of a bright piece rose, violins thin and high above the background noise. Lily's breath stuttered. She leaned her shoulder into the doorframe as if she needed something solid to hold her up. Her free hand left her headphones and came to rest on the wood fingertips pressing into the grain. Elena glanced down. "You can stay here," she said. "Right here by the door. That is fine." Guests began to arrive in small clusters, taking in the sight of the ballroom, with smooth compliments, their voices layering over the music. Perfume and cologne drifted in floral and sharp. Miguel rolled his cart farther along the wall, keeping a respectful distance while he checked the floor for stray drops of water. Every few seconds, his eyes went back to the child in the doorway. He watched the way her foot started tapping again, faster this time, no longer in a steady pattern. Her gaze flicked from light to light, from table to table, never resting long. Her fingers flexed on the doorframe. Near the stage, the lighting technician brought the chandeliers up another notch. The room brightened whites, more white reflections, more intense. Crystal scattered light across the ceiling and onto the faces of the nearest guests. At the doorway, Lily's shoulders tightened under the thin straps of her dress. Her hand left the frame and flew back to her headphones. She pushed them hard against her ears, eyes squeezing shut as the quartet launched fully into the piece. The music hit a bright high run that seemed to slice the air. From where Lily stood, the sound did not layer. It stacked. Violin over voices over clinking glass on top of the heavy thud of her own heartbeat. Each note landed without space around it, crowding the inside of her head. The room blurred at the edges. The chandeliers stretched taller than they were. The faces near the front tables lost their shape. Light scattered into hard points that jumped every time someone moved. Her fingers dug into the sides of her headphones. The padding that usually muffled the world felt thin. The plastic cut into her palms. Elena knelt beside her dress, brushing the floor. "Breathe, Lily," she whispered. "In through your nose, remember." Lily saw her mother's lips move. The words reached her, as if through water distorted and late. Behind them a laugh spiked, then another, then the sharp ring of metal on glass as someone tested a champagne flute. It was too many edges, too many corners. The steady thump of the bass from a speaker near the stage pressed into her chest. A waiter slipped past in front of her, carrying a tray of drinks, and the smell of citrus and alcohol rushed her nose. She pulled the headphones off. The world rushed in all at once. The violins were no longer thin. They screamed. The room was no longer just bright. It burned. Each light hit her eyes like a slap. She gasped. Her breath came short and fast. The doorframe at her back was not enough. Elena's hand reached for her shoulder. No, it is okay. Leanne. You can put them back on. Here. Her fingers brushed Lily's neck, and the touch was a wire of static up her spine. Lily jerked away, shoulder twisting. Her heel caught on the edge of the rug, and she stumbled forward into the ballroom. The carpet felt wrong under her feet. It gave in places she wanted solid. The air inside the room was thicker, full of perfume and heated bodies and the faint sweetness of dessert trays. A server stopped short to avoid her. A glass tipped on a tray. Liquid splashed, then steadied. A few drops hit the floor. Careful, someone muttered. Lily put her hands over her ears. It did nothing. The sounds did not come from outside anymore. They were already inside. Her head pounded. Her chest hurt. She dropped. Her knees hit the carpet. The rich red color swam under her palms, dark and alive. Her heart hammered against her ribs too fast, chasing the tempo of the quartet. Somewhere above her a voice said her name. She knew it was Elena's. She knew she should look up. She could not. She curled forward, forehead almost touching the floor. Her hands slipped from her ears to the back of her head, fingers threading through her own hair, trying to press the noise out. It did not leave. Elena came down beside her. Lily, sweetie, listen to me, look at me, just look at me, okay? A hand hovered over Lily's back and landed lightly between her shoulder blades. The fabric of the dress dragged across her skin. The pressure, even gentle, felt like weight she had not agreed to carry. She twisted away. The hand slid off. Her head swung and bumped to the edge of a chair leg. The jolt did not hurt much. It did something else. It gave her a single clear point in the middle of the chaos, a tap, a simple feeling that was hers. She moved into it again. The second bump came more deliberate. The third found a rhythm, not hard enough to bruise, just enough to feel, to anchor. Carpet under knees, wood against her forehead, wood, carpet, wood, carpet. Gasps rose around her, small and sharp. Oh dear, what is happening? Is she sick? Elena put herself between Lily and the nearest guests, without standing up, one hand extended. She is fine, she said quickly. She just needs a minute. Her voice was tight at the edges. Through the blur of movement and color, Lily's eyes latched on to a single safe point, a pattern in the carpet, a repeated shape. Her forehead touched down once more, catching that shape exactly. For a fraction of a second, everything lined up. Then someone laughed, a short clipped sound half hidden behind a hand. It cut across the moment like a knife. I guess even the best branding cannot fix everything, a male voice said. You would think the woman running a sound company could keep her own house in order. Lily did not know who spoke. The words were not for her. They were for other ears, pitched just low enough to pretend they were private, just loud enough to carry. Miguel heard them. He was near the far wall, wiping a faint water ring from a dark wood table. His body had been on autopilot. His eyes had already been tracking Lily from the doorway to the floor. He saw her curl. He saw Elena's hand recoil. He saw the man in the tailored suit lean toward his companion's lips, pulling back in a half-smile as he delivered his line. Gavin Blake wore his money the way some men wore aftershave. It moved ahead of him. Miguel had seen his face in news segments on hospital lobby televisions. Something about acquisitions. Something about sports complexes. Miguel's jaw tightened. Near Lily, someone stepped closer. A woman in a black gown and diamonds leaned over Elena with a frown. "Can I call someone?" she asked quietly. "An ambulance." "She does not need an ambulance," Elena said. "She just needs—" The sentence lost itself. One of the hotel's security guards appeared beside Miguel. "You see this?" the guard said, eyes on the cluster forming near the door. Miguel nodded once. "They are going to want us on that in a second," the guard added. "Guests are already looking." On cue, another security guard made his way around the tables, his posture professional, his gaze assessing. He was the kind of man trained to move people out of the way to contain disruptions before they made donors uncomfortable. Lily rocked again, head tapping that same strip of wood. The shoes of the nearest guests shifted back to avoid her. A woman's dress swished against the carpet as she stepped away. Elena's hand hovered. Every time she reached forward, Lily's rocking stuttered and sped up. "Please," Elena said softly. "Please, honey, we talked about this." Her knees pressed into the carpet. The front of her dress creased. Her lipstick, perfect earlier, had faded just a bit in the middle. Miguel swallowed. He knew this pattern. The way the body searched for something that belonged to it when everything else did not. The way the rest of the world saw only the surface. In his mind, the ballroom flickered into a different room altogether. A cramped apartment, a second-hand couch. Lucas at 5 hands over ears, pounding his heels against the cushions while the upstairs neighbors argued, and a television blared a game show laugh track through the wall. Miguel had shouted then, "Stop it! You are going to break it! Just stop!" Lucas had startled and screamed louder, his small body crumpling into a ball so tight, Miguel did not know where his arms ended and his legs began. He had stood there useless, anger covering fear, fear covering something that felt too much like shame. The memory sat behind his ribs like a stone. In the ballroom, the quartet played on, oblivious. It was rehearsal to them. They did not see the girl on the floor near the door. The lighting tech glanced at the commotion, and misreading cues brought the chandeliers up another notch. Crystal flared, sending bright fragments across the room. The air shimmered above the candles as if heat had already built. Lily's breathing turned ragged. Her rocking lost rhythm completely. Her hands slid off her head and clutched at the carpet. The first security guard reached her. "Ma'am," he said to Elena, voice carefully, neutral, "do you need assistance with your child?" Elena looked up at him, eyes wide. For a heartbeat, she seemed about to agree, as if any help would do. Then she remembered the last time someone unfamiliar had tried to touch Lily during a clinic meltdown. The scratches on the nurse's wrist. The way Lily had refused even to sit near that nurse afterward. "Please stay back," Elena said. "She will hit if you grab her. She is not trying to hurt anyone. She is just—" Her throat closed on the word. "Ma'am, guests are starting to record," the guard said quietly. Several phones were already raised screens, catching the chandeliers, the tables, the small figure on the floor. A few of the owners of those phones looked hesitant. Others looked curious. Near the front tables, Gavin watched with an expression Miguel could not categorize. Disapproval sat there, familiar. Something else flickered under it for a moment, and then vanished. "We have protocols," the guard went on. "We can move her somewhere quieter." "We are not touching her," Elena said. "You do not understand." She turned back to her daughter. "Lily, I am right here, okay? You are safe." Another bump, forehead to wood. Miguel set the glass down. The mop leaned where he had left it next to the cart. He wiped his damp hands on his pants, not because he cared about the marks, but because he did not want to start this with water on his skin. His knees still ached from earlier, but he hardly felt it now. He stepped away from the wall and walked toward the doorway, keeping to the side of the nearest table. The sounds of the room did not fade for him, but his focus narrowed until there was only the girl on the floor, the mother hovering over her, and the guard ready to reach in. The second security guard fell in behind him, assuming he was heading to clear a spill or move a cart. He did not stop Miguel. As Miguel came closer, he took one earplug out. The room grew louder, the quartet sharpening, the murmur of voices gaining texture. It was not comfortable. That was all right. He needed to hear her. The guard bent his knees, ready to reach for Lily's arms. Miguel spoke before he could. "Give her space," he said. The words were not loud, but they cut through the noise around them. The guard hesitated and looked over his shoulder. Miguel stepped closer, not toward Lily, but toward the guard. He held the man's gaze. "If you grab her right now," Miguel said quietly, "she is going to panic more." "This is a private event, sir," the guard replied. "We have to keep things calm." Miguel nodded toward the girl on the floor. "She is not a threat to anyone," he said. "She is drowning. That is different." The guard glanced at Elena, waiting for her cue. Her eyes moved between the two men, her hand frozen in the air above her daughter's shoulder. "Please," she said. "He is right. Do not touch her." The guard shifted back a half step. It was not much, but it opened a narrow strip of space beside Lily, a pocket where no one else stood. Miguel stepped into it. He did not crouch right away. He let his body slow first. His shoulders dropped, his hands unclenched. His breathing deepened, as if he could offer a steadier rhythm just by standing near. Lily rocked forward and back, head tapping the same piece of wood, the same strip of carpet. Her breath came out in quick bursts. Her fingers clutched the fabric of her dress. Miguel pictured Lucas at 5 knees under his chin on that tired couch, lost in his own storm. He remembered the night he had decided to stop shouting and start counting, watching the rhythm instead of the effect on the furniture. He eased himself down, lowering his body until he was sitting cross-legged on the carpet a few feet from Lily. His knees protested. He ignored them. From here, he could see the way her eyes were open, but not really looking fixed on a blur somewhere past the chair leg. He did not reach for her. He started to move. He let his upper body sway just a little, forward back, forward back. He watched her carefully and matched the timing of her rocking instead of asking her to match his. The first few cycles she did not change. Carpet would carpet. Her head tapped lightly each time. Then the edge of her vision caught something, a shadow, a shift. Her eyes slid sideways fast and darting, then snapped back to the floor. Miguel stayed with the motion. He kept it gentle, not dramatic. He let his hands rest on his knees, palms down, fingers loose. Elena watched him with a furrow between her brows. "What are you doing?" she whispered. He did not look at her. He did not answer. Lily's rocking slowed for one beat, then sped up again. Miguel adjusted with her. He let his own sway lag half a second behind, then slip forward until they moved together. Forward, back, forward, back. The room seemed to pull in around them. Voices blurred into a single low murmur. The string quartet's rehearsed piece became background. Even the crystal light softened at the edges. A glass clinked somewhere. A phone shutter clicked. Lily's breathing, though still uneven, had a tiny space between each inhale and exhale now, a narrow crack where something other than panic could fit. Miguel lifted one hand from his knee. He raised it slowly, letting her see every inch of the movement. His fingers were wide, calloused pads catching the light from above. He held his palm out, not toward her, but up in the air between them. He let that hand move too, a slow arc downward, then up, down, up. The motion was smooth like a wave rolling in and back. It had a beginning and an end, a clear pattern she could latch onto if she wanted. Her forehead grazed the wood again, but the impact was lighter. Her eyes flicked from the floor to his hand and back, as if she could not decide which hurt less. He kept the wave steady. "You hear a lot right now, do not you?" he said, voice low. "Too many sounds in the same place." Lily's shoulders lifted on a sharp breath. "Feels like it is pressing on your skin," he went on, still swaying, "like the room is too close." He did not tell her she was safe. He did not tell her to calm down. He gave her different words, ones that named what was happening inside her head. Her fingers loosened a fraction on her dress. The wave of his hand continued. Up, down, up, down. The arc was always the same, predictable, the only predictable thing in the room. Her rocking slowed again almost without her knowing it. The taps of her forehead against the chair legs softened until they were barely touches. Miguel let his own sway match the new pace. He rolled his shoulders in time, letting his spine curve and straighten, like he was breathing with the movement. Elena saw at first the tiny change. She pressed her lips together, afraid to speak, afraid she would break whatever fragile connection was forming. Miguel lowered his hand slightly, bringing the wave closer to Lily's eyeline. "You can look at this instead," he said softly. "Just this, not everything." Lily's gaze latched onto the moving hand. The noise of the room did not vanish, but the motion gave her something to follow that did not hurt. Her chest still rose and fell fast, but the edges of panic dulled. Miguel let a small space appear between each wave, barely noticeable, just enough that it did not blur into a single movement. Up, pause, down, pause. Her head stopped tapping. She stayed curled forward, but her forehead hovered just above the wood now. Her hair hung in front of her face, catching light along a few strands. Miguel slowly turned his palm toward her, still moving in that same measured pattern. Then he moved it closer to the floor, closer to where her hands were clenched. He did not reach for her fingers. He set his palm on the carpet midway between them and left it there open. The skin on his hand was rough, with tiny cracks from cleaning chemicals. The lines across his palm deepened when he relaxed it, not when he tensed. Lily's eyes tracked the movement down. For a moment she looked not at the chandeliers, not at the guests, not at the vibrating screen at the front, but at one simple thing, the broad still hand on the carpet. Her breathing snagged once more. A tremor ran through her shoulders. Her left hand remained twisted in the fabric of her dress. Her right hand inched forward, fingers dragging across the carpet fibers. She stopped just short. Her fingertips hovered in the space above his palm. Miguel did not move. Minutes stretched thin. The room held its breath with them. Someone shifted their weight, and a floorboard creaked. The quartet reached the end of its piece and let the last note hang before dropping their bows. For a few rare seconds there was a silence that the room had not heard all evening. In that quiet, Lily's fingers settled into his palm. It was not a grab. It was not even a full touch. Her fingertips came to rest there, light and tentative, their small weight, like a bird testing whether a branch would hold. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Her chest shook on a sound that did not quite become a sob. Miguel felt the heat of Lily's skin against his. Her touch sent a line of feeling up his arm and into his throat. He swallowed it down and let his fingers curl very slightly, just enough to give her the sense that something solid was under her, not enough to close around her. "There you go," he murmured. "That is it." Her shoulders dropped half an inch. He did not pull her up from the floor. He did not rush anything. He kept the rocking motion small, and with his free hand let one last slow wave drift through the air, then come to rest. The chatter around them began again, softer now, threaded with the rustle of clothing and the faint buzz of whispered speculation. The phones were still out, but a few had lowered the people behind them, unsure of what they were capturing. Gavin's eyes stayed on Miguel's hand where it held Lily's. His mouth was closed now. His earlier comment hung in the air between his memory and his pride. Miguel eased himself forward onto his knees, bringing his body a little closer to Lily without tugging on her arm. His palm still cradled her fingers. "You are okay," he said quietly, "not because it is quiet, it is not, but because you are not by yourself." Her breath brushed his knuckles. He shifted his weight and rose slowly, letting her feel every inch of the movement through the connection of their hands. When he stood, he kept his arm relaxed, giving her the choice to follow or let go. She came up with him, legs unsteady. Her knees wobbled. She nearly slipped. His grip firm just enough to steady her and then loosened again. Elena scrambled to her feet. Her eyes shone wet under the bright lights. "Lily," she said, her voice breaking on the name. Lily did not look at her. Her gaze was fixed on something else now, something beyond all the tables and the crowded floor. Miguel followed that line of sight and saw it too. At the edge of the room, a side door stood propped open, leading to a service hallway. Through the gap, softer light seeped in, pale and steady. No chandeliers, no candles, just a row of small fixtures along a narrower ceiling. He looked back at Elena, asking without words, "Is there a quieter spot back there?" he asked out loud. "Yes," she said. "The service corridor. It goes to the loading bay." "Can we use it?" Miguel asked the closest staff member. The event coordinator nodded, quickly, relief in her eyes. "Of course." Miguel turned his head to Lily, keeping his voice low. "There is a softer room over there," he said. "Less light, fewer sounds. We can walk there, one step at a time." She shifted her weight shoes, pressing into the carpet. Her fingers stayed in his palm. The stone she had held earlier lay abandoned near the chair leg where she had dropped it. They took one small step, then another. The crowd parted without being told. Chairs slid back. People moved aside, their conversations thinning as they watched. Some faces held surprise, some discomfort, some something else. Elena walked just behind them, close enough that Lily could have reached for her if she chose, far enough that she did not crowd. As they passed Gavin's table, Miguel felt the investor's gaze like a weight on the side of his face. He did not look away from the doorway. At the service door, the music was already softer. The temperature seemed to drop a degree. Miguel pressed his shoulder against the door to open it wider. "Here we go," he said quietly to Lily. They stepped through into the narrower light. The sound changed as soon as the door closed behind them. The thrum of voices from the ballroom thinned to a faint, muffled wash. The sharp edges of the string instruments blurred. The high clink of glass vanished completely. In its place came the steady hush of the building itself, air moving through vents, refrigeration units humming somewhere beyond the wall. The service hallway was narrow and plain. Gray linoleum underfoot, off-white paint on the walls. A row of fluorescent fixtures overhead, but only every other one was on, leaving pockets of softer light between. Lily's shoulders dropped a little as the pressure of the ballroom released. Her grip on Miguel's hand loosened, though she did not let go. Her breathing still came fast, but each breath drew in a little more easily. Miguel felt the difference in her palm. The clammy, desperate clench had shifted to something lighter. "Better," he said quietly, "a little." Lily did not speak. She lifted her free hand to touch one of the walls, fingertips tracing a faint scrape in the paint. The surface was cool and solid under her skin. Miguel guided her a few steps away from the door, far enough that when it opened again, the rush of noise would not slam straight into her chest. He chose a spot where the light above them buzzed softly but did not flicker. Buzzing he could work with. Flickering was harder. "Is this okay?" he asked. She gave the slightest nod, her chin barely dipping. Elena slipped in through the door and let it ease shut behind her. For a second she leaned against it, as if her body needed something firm to press against. The quiet hit her in a different way. The absence of eyes, the absence of lenses. Her hands trembled. She pressed them flat against the cool metal of the handle to hide it. Lily's hand twitched in Miguel's. He lowered himself slowly to the floor and sat with his back against the wall. The linoleum was harder than the carpet had been, but at least it did not move under him. He tilted his head toward the opposite wall. "Can we sit here?" he asked. Lily looked at the floor, then at him. She sank down without a word, folding her legs underneath in a way that made her dress puff around her. She kept her shoulder near the wall, as if she needed it at her side. Miguel shifted so that he sat at an angle not directly in front of her, not blocking her line of sight back to the door. He left space between them enough that she could move without feeling trapped, not so much that she was alone in the middle. Her hand slid from his and curled into her lap. The backs of her fingers brushed the fabric of her dress in a small, repetitive stroke. Back and forth, back and forth. The headphones hung from her neck, now one ear cup resting against her collarbone. A faint ring of red marked the skin where the band had pressed into the top of her head. "You took these off when it got too loud," Miguel said, nodding at them. That made it worse. Her eyes moved to his face for the first time. They were a light, changeable color, somewhere between gray and green. Up close, he could see flecks of darker shade near the center. He did not ask her to answer. He went on gently. "Sometimes my boy does that too," he said. "He thinks if he hears all of it at once, it will go away faster. It never does." "Your boy," Lily repeated. Her voice came out thin. The words felt unused, as though they did not leave her mouth often. "Yes," Miguel said. "Lucas. He is 9 now. When he was small, grocery stores were the worst. The lights, the freezers, the carts squeaking. It all stacked up." He let the memory take shape in the air between them. The bright aisles, the hum of lights that most people never noticed. He used to lie down in the cereal aisle, Miguel said, right on the floor next to the frosted flakes. People would steer around him, some would not. They would bump the cart near him and frown at me. Lily's lips pressed together. Her fingers picked up speed on the fabric, the small stroke becoming a more definite rhythm. "I thought he was doing it on purpose," Miguel admitted, "to embarrass me, to make things hard. I picked him up once, tried to hold him still against my chest. He rubbed the underside of his forearm with his thumb, feeling for scars that were not visible anymore. He bit," Miguel said simply, "hard. His heart was going so fast I could feel it through my shirt. That was not a kid trying to ruin my day. That was a kid fighting for air." Lily's breathing had evened out to something closer to normal. She watched his hand as he spoke, the way his fingers traced the same path on his arm that hers had traced on her dress. "What did you do then?" Elena's voice came from a few feet away. Miguel looked up at her. She had stayed standing back against the door, as if holding it closed with her body. "I put him down," he said, "on the floor. People stared. I let them." He shrugged one shoulder. "Then I sat next to him and waited for his breathing to change," he said. "You just waited," Elena said. There was no accusation in it, only a tired curiosity. I watched, Miguel answered. I started paying attention to what set him off. That took longer than it should have. He shifted his gaze back to Lily. "It is loud in here for you," he said, "even now." She hesitated, then nodded a small, jerky motion. "Too bright, too," he added, glancing at the fixture above them. She nodded again. He reached into his pocket and took out his key ring. It was an old ring crowded with keys of different shapes for different doors in the building. On it hung one small object that did not belong to the hotel. A tiny plastic brick, red and worn with the word Lucas, had scratched into it with something sharp. Miguel detached it and set it on the floor between them. "My boy made this," he said. "Helps him when he needs something to hold. You can borrow it if you want." Lily looked at the brick. It was not smooth like her stone. The little pegs on top caught the light. She extended one hand slowly and nudged it with her fingertip. It wobbled a little, then settled. She pushed it back. The motion was careful, as if she was testing its weight. "Lucas," she said, tasting it. Miguel's mouth softened around a smile. "Yeah," he said. "Lucas. He likes patterns, maps, putting things in just the right order." "Like me," Lily said. The words surprised all three of them. They came out with a touch more strength, as if naming the connection gave her something solid to stand on. "Like you," Miguel agreed. Elena took a step forward. Her heels on the linoleum sounded too loud in the quiet hall. She winced and stopped. Her eyes were red at the edges, but she held herself straight. "I did not know how to help her," she said. The confession hung in the air naked. "We have tried social stories therapy timers, every strategy they suggested. Inside rooms, inside offices, where it is controlled." Her gaze flicked back toward the closed ballroom door. "I thought if we practiced enough, she would be able to handle a night like this," she said. "That was selfish." Lily did not look at her. She traced the Lego brick back and forth, finding a rhythm in its resistance. Miguel watched both of them. He could see the distance between mother and daughter not in feet, but in missed chances and good intentions that had landed wrong. The door behind Elena opened an inch. The handle pressed into her back. She stepped aside automatically, and the door eased inward a little. Gavin Blake stood in the gap. In the harsher light of the service corridor, he looked older than he had under the chandeliers. The lines around his mouth were deeper. His tie was slightly loosened, the knot no longer pressed against his throat. He looked at Lily first, then at Miguel on the floor, then at Elena. "I owe you an apology," he said. His voice was flatter than it had been at his table, without the performative warmth. Elena's jaw worked once before she answered. "For what exactly," she asked, "do you think you should apologize?" "For running my mouth in a room full of people who repeat everything they hear," he said. "For judging what I did not understand." He shifted his attention to Lily again. She flicked a glance his way and then back to the brick. "My grandson Gavin said, slowly started covering his ears in church last year, in the grocery store, at family dinners. We thought he was being dramatic. His parents tried to talk him out of it." He cleared his throat. "The doctor said autism last month," he went on. "I have not known what to do with that word. So, I made jokes instead." The word hung in the narrow space solid and unadorned. Miguel stayed seated. He did not soften Gavin's discomfort. "There is nothing to do with the word," Miguel said. "There is something to do with the kid." Gavin's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a wince. "I watched you in there," he said, "with her. You did not make it stop. You did not drag her out. You just found her where she was." Miguel felt his shoulders lift in a small shrug. "I have had practice," he said, "mostly in getting it wrong first." Gavin nodded once. The movement was slow, as if each inch cost something. "If there is any way to bring what you know to more people like me," he said, "you should." Elena turned her head toward Miguel. That thought had already been forming in her mind in pieces and scraps. Hearing it from Gavin gave it weight permission she should not have needed but still felt. She stepped away from the door and came closer, careful to keep her footsteps light. She lowered herself to a crouch this time, not in heels and polish, but on the same level as the man with his back against the wall and the girl with the Lego brick in her hand. "You work here nights?" she said, "cleaning." Miguel nodded. "What do you do when you are not here?" she asked. He thought of the tiny apartment on the south side, the second-hand couch, the math worksheets on the kitchen table, the noise-canceling headset he had saved for months to buy. "I am a dad," he said. "That is obvious," Elena said quietly. "I am asking if anyone is paying you for what you just did." He shook his head. "No," he said. "Mostly they pay me to fix things after people are done making a mess." Elena looked at Lily, at the slight way her shoulders had relaxed, at the way her fingers moved with purpose now instead of panic. Then she looked back at Miguel. "I want to change that," she said. "Not the cleaning, the part where you know how to reach a child in that state." He frowned, not in confusion but in caution. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I am saying I want to hire you," Elena replied. "Not as housekeeping, as a consultant. For me, for my company, for families like yours, like mine, like his." She tilted her head toward the doorway. Gavin had not moved. Miguel's eyes widened slightly. "I did not finish school," he said. "I do not have letters after my name. I do not have a degree to hang on a wall." Elena's mouth curved not quite into a smile, but into something close. "You have something better," she said. "You have a set of steps that actually work when a child is falling apart on a ballroom floor." He glanced down at his hands, the lines in his palms, the faint shake that had started somewhere between his wrist and his elbow now that the immediate crisis had passed. "I can show you what I do with Lucas," he said slowly. "What I have learned so far. I am still figuring things out." "So am I," Elena answered. "So is everyone who pretends they are not." Lily shifted closer, her knee brushing Miguel's. She held up the Lego brick between thumb and forefinger. "Can I keep this?" she asked. Miguel looked at the brick, then at her. "You can borrow it," he said, "for as long as you need. Lucas would like that." She nodded and closed her fingers around it. Her hand moved with a familiar rhythm, not frantic now, but steady. Behind them, through the door, the muffled sound of the ballroom rolled on, full of people who had already turned the earlier scene into something to talk about over dessert. In the quiet corridor, 3 adults and 1 child sat in a small pool of softer light, breathing in time with a world that for this moment had finally slowed enough for them to hear each other. The video went online before midnight. No one in the service corridor knew it then. They were still sitting on the linoleum, the air around them warm from shared breathing, while staff eased the gala back into its script. Later, after Lily had gone home with Elena in a quiet car, after Miguel had finished wiping down the last unattended table and stacking the final chairs, he found out. He was in the break room leaning over the sink with the cheap metal faucet rinsing the smell of cleaning chemicals from his hands. The fluorescent light above him hummed. Water beat against steel. Behind him, two banquet servers sat at a narrow table finishing what was left of dessert. One scrolled on her phone thumb, flicking the screen. "Is that from tonight?" the other asked. "Yeah," the first answered. "Someone from that marketing firm posted it. Look." Miguel turned off the tap and dried his hands on a rough paper towel. He was not trying to eavesdrop, but the room was small and their voices carried. "It is the ward line thing," the server went on. "With the kid and the janitor. Let me see." She tapped a button and turned up the volume. The little room filled with the thin, compressed sound of the ballroom, the quartet, the murmur of guests, the faint gasp. The screen showed Lily on the floor by the door, then panned to the man in gray walking toward her, toward him. Miguel froze halfway between the sink and the table. The video was shaky at first shot from behind a cluster of people. As it went on, the camera settled. The person recording must have realized something real was happening and held still. The clip caught the moment he sat down. The mirroring, the slow wave of his hand, the first touch of Lily's fingers in his palm. Someone in the break room swore softly. "That is you," the second server said, looking up at Miguel. On the screen, the caption beneath the clip read, "The janitor knew exactly what to do." He walked closer despite his instinct to avoid it. The video had been cropped in a way that made the ballroom look smaller, all its wealth pushed to the edges. In the center of the frame, it was just a child, a man, and a hand. Comments already scrolled beneath. "She is not having a tantrum that is overload. My son is like this. Nobody ever understood. Who is he? Someone find him. I want to learn what he did." Miguel stared until the image blurred. He blinked hard. The server holding the phone looked from the screen to his face. "You are going to be famous," she said, half teasing. "You ready for that, Reyes?" He gave a short, humorless laugh. "People forget videos in a day," he said. "Tomorrow they will be filming someone else." He wanted to believe it. The idea of strangers knowing his face made his skin prickle. He left the break room and finished his shift. That night, after the last trash bag had been tied and the last light in the ballroom had been turned off, he took the bus home. The city outside the window blurred into streaks of sodium orange and green traffic lights. Miguel rested his forehead against the cool glass and watched his reflection ghost over the buildings. He pulled out his own phone. The screen was cracked at the corner, a spider web that did not quite reach the middle. He opened the app the servers had used and typed in a few words. The clip had already passed 1 million views. He scrolled through the comments without fully reading them. The words that did catch his eye were simple. "My boy, my girl, this is my life." His chest tightened. He put the phone away and closed his eyes. By morning, the number had doubled. By the end of the week, it had reached numbers he had only ever seen next to stadium attendance or election coverage. He found out from Lucas. Dad Lucas shouted from the second-hand couch, tablet in hand, "You are on everybody's phone." Miguel came out of the small kitchen with 2 bowls of cereal. "I am," what he asked. Lucas shoved the tablet toward him. A news site had embedded the clip. A headline sat above it, "When the only one who can help is the one no one sees." Miguel set the bowls down and watched his own hands move on screen again. "Why did you not tell me you did this?" Lucas said, eyes wide. Miguel blinked. "I was at work," he said. "You were asleep." Lucas grinned. "I told Ms. Harris," he said. "She said we are going to talk about sensory overload in class next week. She said your video is a teaching tool." He sounded proud. Miguel did not know where to put that. He took a spoonful of cereal and let it soften in his mouth without tasting it. His phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. He wiped his hand on a dish towel and answered. "Mr. Reyes, this is Elena Ward." Her voice, removed from echo and microphones and ballrooms, sounded different over the tiny speaker. Smaller, more human. "Hi," he said, suddenly aware that he was standing in his kitchen, in socks, with a sink full of dishes behind him. "I saw the article this morning," she said. "And the clip. And the comments. People from all over are sharing it." "I noticed," he said. There was a short silence. He heard her inhale. "I meant what I said in that hallway," she went on. "I want to hire you, properly, not just as a one-time favor." Miguel watched Lucas line cereal pieces up along the rim of his bowl, creating a pattern. "To do what exactly?" he asked. "To teach us," she said. "To teach my staff. To teach other parents. I have a space at the office we can convert into something more useful than a boardroom." He leaned against the counter. "You already have doctors and therapists for that," he said. "They have knowledge," Elena replied. "So do you. Different kinds. I want both. He let out a slow breath. I clean floors, he said. I cover night shifts. That is what I know how to do. Maybe you know two things, Elena answered. We can pay you for both. He did not agree on that call. He did not say no either. They met in person a few days later at Wardline's headquarters in a glass building that caught the Chicago sky in its reflection. Miguel had never been inside it. He had walked past on his way to other jobs, looking up at the clean lines and the logo on the side. At reception, he felt the familiar urge to smooth down his shirt to check the soles of his shoes. His hands still smelled faintly of disinfectant, no matter how many times he washed them. The receptionist smiled. Mr. Reyes, she said, Ms. Ward is expecting you. He followed her through a set of glass doors and into a long corridor. The walls held framed photos of concert halls, arenas, theaters lit in different colors. Somewhere deep in the building, music played through a sound system so finely tuned he could not tell where the speakers were. Elena met him in a conference room, but it did not look like a typical one. The long table had been pushed aside. In its place stood a cluster of smaller round tables. The chairs had softer backs. The overhead lights were dimmed and strips of indirect light ran along the walls instead. We did a test, she said, seeing him take it in. Full brightness half and this level. My eyes stopped aching at this one. Miguel smiled despite himself. Whose idea was that, he asked. Lily's in a way, Elena said. She covered her eyes when she walked in here last time at full power. She walked to a corner and gestured. We put a rug there, she said. Beanbags, weighted blankets, some fidgets. A low shelf held baskets of small objects that fit in hands. Stress balls, soft strips of fabric, blocks. A box of noise-canceling headphones sat on top. Miguel picked up a pair, turning them in his hands. They were better than the cheap ones he had bought at a discount store for Lucas. You did this fast, he said. When you are used to moving budgets for stadiums, rugs and lamps are easy, she said. What matters is what happens in here. She sat at one of the round tables and motioned for him to sit too. I want to call it something, she said. Something that tells people it is for them, not for investors. Miguel thought about Lily and Lucas walking together, feet in sync hands, tracing patterns in the air. Quiet, he said. There is nothing wrong with that word. She nodded slowly. Quiet steps, she said. It sounds like movement that does not have to be loud to matter. He rolled the words around in his head and found that they fit. So we invite parents, he said. Caregivers, teachers. Yes, Elena said. We start local. Some of the people who commented on the video left their emails. They want to know what you did and how to do it. We can offer them more than a clip. The idea both pulled at him and scared him. Standing in front of a room full of parents was not the same as kneeling on a ballroom floor with one child. What if I say the wrong thing, he asked. You will, Elena said simply. So will I. We will fix it when it happens. He looked down at his hands again. They were resting on the table, palms open, as if expecting something to land there. I am not a therapist, he said. I know, she answered. You are a translator. He met her eyes. For kids who cannot use the language most people listen for, she clarified. He thought of Lucas's patterns and Lily's tapping heels. The way both children had found each other in the brief moments they had spent together after the gala, following lines in the tile with their toes, while adults talked overhead. When do we start? He asked. Next month, Elena said. If you say yes. He looked around the room once more, at the lowered lights, the baskets, the rug, waiting for someone to sit on it. He thought of another room years ago, where he had sat across from a doctor who had told him about sensory processing disorder in clinical terms. Back then, he had left feeling more alone than when he went in. If this room could be something else for someone else that mattered. He nodded. I will try, he said. The first Quiet Steps session did not go smoothly. 10 parents showed up. Some arrived in work uniforms, some in suits, loosened at the collar, some in jeans. They sat at the round tables and held coffee cups like shields. Miguel stood at the front, hands tucked into his pockets to hide their shake. He wore his cleanest shirt, the one without any visible bleach spots. A projector hummed behind him, ready to show slides if he needed them. He had put one together with Elena's help. A photo of Lucas building a tower of Lego bricks. A close-up of small hands over ears in a crowded store. Words in clear, bold font. He looked at the faces in front of him and forgot everything he had written in his notes. Hi, he said. His voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. I am Miguel. I work nights here, and I have a son who used to lie on grocery store floors. A laugh bubbled from somewhere in the room. It was a weary laugh, but a real one. I am not here as an expert, he said. I am here because once someone told me my kid was being difficult, when really the world was being too loud. I spent years punishing him for what he could not control. I am trying to do better. Heads nodded. A woman in the second row wiped her nose with the back of her hand. He took a breath and relaxed his shoulders. The room responded. He talked about mirroring, about outer rhythm matching inner chaos, about watching breathing instead of words. He showed them a simple hand wave. Some copied him, their palms cutting the air in slow, uncertain arcs. Later during the break, a father with tired eyes came up to him. "My daughter screams when we go to birthday parties," the man said. "We stopped going. Her mother cries about it. Seeing that video of you and that girl, I thought maybe we do not have to stop everything. Maybe we just have to do it differently." Miguel nodded. "Birthday parties are war zones," he said. "Maybe you start with 1 balloon instead of 50. The man laughed once watery. At the back of the room, Elena watched. She saw the way Miguel's shoulders gradually uncurled as he listened more than he spoke. She saw parents leaning forward, not because he had the right credentials, but because he had the right scars. Outside the glass walls of the building, Chicago traffic moved. People hurried past without looking up. Inside, under softer light, a group sat in a circle, learning to see patterns where they had once seen only misbehavior. In a corner of the room near the rug, a small pair of silver headphones rested on a chair. Lily had placed them there when she walked in with Lucas earlier, fingers trailing along the edge of the table, eyes scanning the new space. She was not wearing them now. Lily had slipped the headphones off the moment she saw the room. The light was lower than she was used to in big spaces. It did not sting. The hum of the building was present, but the hard edges of noise were softened. People talked in small clusters instead of one roaring crowd. She stood by the rug, one hand on Lucas's sleeve as Miguel finished his words at the front. Lucas leaned down to whisper. "See the lights," he said. "They are not yelling." She followed his gaze to the strips of glow along the walls. No chandeliers, no glare. "Better," she agreed. They sat together on the rug while the adults formed a circle. Lily lined up a row of soft blocks, tapping each one with a fingertip, before moving to the next. Lucas ran his thumb along the seam of a weighted blanket, feeling the beads inside shift and settle. When Miguel demonstrated the slow wave of his hand, the one he had used in the ballroom, Lily's eyes tracked it with quiet recognition. Her own hand lifted half in the air, fingers tracing a smaller version of the same pattern near her knee. Lucas watched her and copied their two hands, creating mirrored arcs. Elena's chest loosened at the sight. Halfway through the session, when a toddler in the back corner began to fuss under the fluorescent hum, Lily stood on her own and walked over. She knelt, palms open, and began to move her hands in that same gentle wave, slow and predictable. The toddler calmed. The mother's eyes filled. That night on the train home, Miguel watched the city lights flicker past and felt something shift. He had not fixed anyone. He had not cured anything, but he had given a room full of people a different way to see. The weeks that followed built themselves in layers. On Tuesday evenings, quiet steps filled with the same faces and new ones. Some came cautiously, standing near the door before choosing a seat. Some came in hot, carrying stories that spilled out before the coffee cooled. A nurse in navy scrubs talked about a son who hid in the bathroom at family gatherings. A mechanic with grease still on his knuckles described his niece bolting from school assemblies. A grandmother held a photo of a boy who lined up his toy cars instead of driving them, and asked if anyone else knew what that meant. Miguel learned to start each session with something small and concrete. A story about Lucas misjudging the sound of fireworks. A detail about how certain fabrics felt to him. A moment in which he had gotten it wrong and then figured out why. His voice steadied. His hands found their way to the whiteboard when he needed visuals, sketching simple diagrams of sensory cups overflowing of lines that crossed too often. Elena sat among the parents most nights, notebook closed, hands resting in her lap. She answered questions about accommodations at work, about IEP meetings at school. She never used jargon if she could help it. During breaks, Lily and Lucas made the corner of the room their own. They invented games that had rules nobody else quite understood. They would walk along the edges of the rug in perfect sync, heel to toe, pivoting together at each corner. They traced invisible paths on the floor tiles, with their toes stopping at invisible marks only they could sense. Sometimes they did not speak at all. They communicated in gestures. A tap on the shoulder, 2 fingers on a wrist, a shared glance at a light fixture when it flickered. Miguel watched them with a mix of relief and ache. For a long time, he had wondered if Lucas would ever find someone whose rhythm matched his without effort. It seemed he had. Outside the workshop, hours Elena's job did not become easier. Board meetings still ran long. Investors still asked pointed questions. Contracts still needed signatures. In one meeting, a board member with an impeccable tie and a skeptical frown tapped his pen on a report. "You have diverted a portion of our event budget to this program," he said. "It does not generate revenue. It does not attract sponsors. Explain." Elena leaned back in her chair. The room was bright, the old way, harsh overhead lights and glass tables shining. "Ward line controls sound," she said. "We spend millions designing systems that make people in arenas and theaters feel something. We know how to shape an environment." She slid a photo across the table. It showed the quiet steps room, parents in soft chairs, kids on the rug. Miguel at the front, one hand raised with an open palm. "We can use that skill to help people who are drowning in the noise everyone else ignores," she went on. "This program may not sign stadium contracts. It signs something else with our name on it." The board member glanced at the photo, then at the others. "It looks like a support group," he said. "Support is not a small thing," Elena answered, "especially when you are used to being alone." There was some grumbling, questions about liability, about scope, about brand. Gavin, seated further down the table, cleared his throat. "My grandson had a meltdown at a family wedding last month," he said. "We took him outside. I tried that hand wave this man teaches." He lifted his own hand, palm up, fingers slightly curved, then let it fall again. "It did not fix everything," he said. "But my daughter looked at me like I was on her side, not judging from the pew. That matters to me more than the cost of a few lamps and rugs." The board member with the pen stopped tapping. Miguel did not know any of this in detail. He only knew that the program kept its room and that the lights there remained soft. At home, he still worked nights some weeks. Bills did not disappear just because a clip went viral. He cleaned offices and polished floors. On Fridays, he met with Elena's staff to plan upcoming sessions. "Teachers are coming next time," she said once, scanning a list. "They have different questions than parents." "Different words for the same worry," Miguel replied. "Not being able to reach a kid and thinking it is their fault." They developed simple handouts, lists of things to try, observations to make. No one left with a cure. They left with permission to see behavior as communication, not defiance. Lily started to say more in those rooms than she did anywhere else. One night, a mother described how her son refused to wear socks, crying and screaming every morning before school. "It is just socks," the woman said helplessly. "I do not understand." Lily's hand went up before Miguel could respond. "They are not just socks," she said. Her voice trembled but held. "They feel like sandpaper, or like ants. They push on the wrong places." The room went quiet. The mother turned her chair toward Lily. "What should I do then?" she asked. Lily thought for a moment, twisting a fidget ring on her finger. "Soft seams," she said. "No loose threads. Let him pick. And do not talk while he puts them on. Talking makes everything louder." The mother nodded slowly, her eyes glossy. "Thank you," she said. After the session, Elena crouched beside her daughter. "You did well," she said. "You did not have to talk. You chose to." "I wanted to," Lily answered. She did not know it felt like ants. She looked at her mother, searching for something. "You did not know either," she added. Elena swallowed. "No," she said. "I did not. I thought it was about rules, or respect, not about ants." Lily's mouth quirked in something like a smile. "You know now," she said. Elena reached out slowly, giving Lily time to move away if she wanted. Lily did not. She let her mother's hand rest on her shoulder, the pressure tentative and light. Miguel saw it and looked away, giving them the privacy of his attention, turned elsewhere. His gaze landed on Lucas, who was carefully arranging chairs into a pattern, 4 red cushions, 4 black alternating. "Looks good," Miguel said. "It is a grid," Lucas replied. "Grids feel better than lines." Seasons shifted outside the ward line building. Snow gathered in slushy piles along the curbs and then melted into gray rivers at the edges of streets. The river beside the Riverside Grand Ballroom froze and thawed. Inside the quiet steps room, they added a rack of winter coats with noise-dampening hoods and a basket of gloves with different textures for kids to test. The clip of the gala still floated around the internet, resurfacing whenever someone shared it with a caption about kindness or unseen labor. New comments kept appearing months later. A teacher in another state wrote, "I used this mirroring with a student who hides under his desk. He came out sooner." A father in a small town added, "We do not have programs like this here. How do we start?" Elena began receiving emails from organizations beyond Chicago, a children's museum, a hospital, a community center in a suburb she had never visited. They asked for resources, for training, for the man in the gray polo who knelt on the ballroom floor. She and Miguel answered what they could with video calls and written guides. They stayed late some nights reviewing footage from sessions, noting what worked and what did not. One afternoon, as a light rain tapped against the office windows, Elena walked into the quiet steps room, holding a thick envelope. Miguel was rolling up a yoga mat, his movements unhurried. "Mail for you," she said, offering the envelope. "Well, for us. Address to the program." He wiped his hands on his jeans before taking it. The paper was heavy, the return address printed crisp in dark ink. He read the top line: National Neurodiversity and Education Conference, Program Committee. His eyebrows lifted. "They want quiet steps on a panel," Elena said. "They want you to speak. They have a track for community initiatives." Miguel turned the envelope over and then back again as if the words might change depending on the angle. Lucas barreled into the room at that moment, trailed by Lily. They were mid-argument about whether maps were better folded or rolled. Lucas saw the envelope in his father's hands. "What is that?" he asked. Miguel looked up at him. "An invitation," he said. Lily tilted her head. "To talk about the dance," she said. Miguel thought of the way they moved together on the rug of up-and-down hands and side-by-side steps. "Something like that," he said. He slid his thumb under the flap and began to open it. The letter inside the envelope was short. Miguel unfolded it at the round table, while Lucas and Lily hovered at his elbows, breathing cereal and pencil shavings. "Mr. Reyes and Ms. Ward," he read aloud. "We would be honored if you would present quiet steps at our annual National Neurodiversity and Education Conference in Chicago this spring. Your community-based work exemplifies the kind of practical lived experience we aim to highlight." He skimmed the rest, silently, eyes catching on words like keynote hall and main stage, and attendance expected to exceed 500. Elena watched his face. "Well," she said, "they do not aim small." He set the paper down, carefully smoothing the crease. 500, he repeated. "And live stream," Elena added. "They stream all sessions to their online library." He looked at her. "You are enjoying this," he said. "Not the part where I imagine Lily under bright lights," she answered. "But the part where people who make decisions about classrooms might hear you. That part, yes." Lucas leaned over the letter. "Will we be there?" he asked. "Me and Lily." "I hope so," Elena said. "They want to see the work, not just hear about it." Lily tapped a fingernail on the table. "Stage," she said quietly, "like the ballroom. Lights." Her eyes were steady but watchful. "Different room," Miguel said. "Different lights. We can visit it before. We can ask them to make changes." "Can they make it quiet?" Lily asked. "Quieter," he said. "We can try." The weeks before the conference folded into each other. Between workshops and late-night cleaning shifts, Miguel and Elena worked through details. Travel was simple enough. The conference center was across the river. The hard parts were softer things. Where the kids would stand, where the lights would be angled, whether the sound system could handle being asked not to show off. At their planning meeting with the conference coordinator, they sat around a table scattered with programs and floor plans. "We are excited to have you," the coordinator said. "Everyone here has seen the clip." Miguel shifted in his chair. "I am more than a clip," he said, then regretted how sharp it sounded. The coordinator held up both hands. "Of course," she said. "That is why we invited you. We have a lot of research presentations. We want families and practitioners too." Elena pointed to a diagram. "You have sensory rooms marked near the back," she said. "What is the main hall like? The one you want quiet steps in?" The coordinator flipped a page. "Ballroom C," she said. "High ceiling, stage at the front, seats 500, full light rig, but we can keep it simple." "Can you turn the chandeliers off?" Miguel asked. "We do not have chandeliers," the coordinator said with a smile. "Just recessed lights and some fixtures." "Good," he replied. "Then do not bring any in." They walked to the conference center a week before opening day. Ballroom C smelled faintly of new carpet. The ceiling was high, but the fixtures were modern and diffused, not crystal. Rows of empty chairs faced a stage with a simple black backdrop. A podium stood to one side. A large screen hung behind. Lily stood in the doorway, fingers digging into her pockets. Lucas stayed at her shoulder. "It is big," he said. She nodded. Miguel walked onto the stage, counting his steps. He turned and looked out at the empty chairs. The space seemed less intimidating without bodies in it, just fabric and air. He clapped once softly. The sound bounced and came back in a gentle echo, not harsh. "The reverb is friendly," he said. Elena stood in the center aisle, eyes narrowed as she took in angles and lines. "I want house lights down to 40%, she told the technician who had joined them. "Can you do that by default?" "Yes," he said, fingers already moving on his tablet. "And no spotlight following them around," Miguel added. "Static wash is fine, nothing that tracks." The technician nodded again. "We have a quiet room just off the hallway," the coordinator reminded them. "If either child needs a break, they can go there." Lily's head turned at that. "Can we see it?" she asked. They walked down a side corridor to a smaller room lined with beanbags and soft chairs. The overhead lights were warmer here. Shelves held sensory toys and books. A white noise machine hummed in one corner. Lily stepped inside and drew a slow breath. Better, she said. Think of this as home base, Miguel told her. We will come here before and after. She touched the wall, pressed her palm flat against it, then pulled it away. In the evenings at home, Miguel and Lucas cleared a space in their small living room and practiced. We do not have to call it a performance, Miguel said one night. We can call it showing people what you do when words are too much. Lucas considered that. Like a live diagram, he said. Exactly. They started with the steps they already knew. Left foot, right foot, hands up, hands down. A slow turn, a pause. When Lily came over on weekends, she and Lucas refined it without being asked. They moved silently, trying different sequences until something clicked. They settled on a pattern that felt good in their bodies. 4 steps forward, 2 to the side, hands tracing waves that intersected and parted. Miguel sat on the couch and watched, paying attention to where they stumbled, where they needed more space. Remember, he said once when Lucas tried to add a spin, this is for you first. If it makes you dizzy, it is not part of the plan. Lucas dropped the spin. The pattern held. On the morning of the conference, Lake Michigan lay under a gray sky chop, sending cold spray against the shore. The river running past the conference center was still dull green under low clouds. Miguel woke before dawn. He stood in the small kitchen with a mug of coffee, watching the light creep along the buildings across the alley. His shirt hung ironed on the back of a chair. The fabric still showed faint wear at the collar. He ran a hand over it, smoothing wrinkles that were not there. Lucas marched into the room in sock-feet headphones around his neck. Are you going to be nervous? He asked. I already am, Miguel said. Lucas nodded as if that was the right answer. Me too, he said, but I can do the steps even when my hands are shaking. Miguel smiled. I know, he said. They met Elena and Lily at the conference center entrance. Elena wore a suit instead of a gown, dark and simple. Her hair was pulled back a few strands loose near her temples. She carried a folder under one arm and a tote bag in the other. Lily's dress was blue, not white. The fabric was soft with no stiff seams. She wore sneakers instead of shiny shoes. Her headphones rested around her neck, the cable coiled in her pocket. House lights are set, where we requested, Elena said. I checked the hallway routes twice. Quiet room is ready. Her words sounded like she was talking to herself as much as to them. Gavin joined them by the registration desk. He wore a suit like always, but he had taken off his tie entirely this time. His neck looked more relaxed without it. My grandson is here, he said. He is in one of the breakout rooms with my daughter. They want to come watch if he feels up to it. Miguel nodded. I am glad he has somewhere to sit that is not front row, he said. Gavin gave a short laugh. So am I, he said. Backstage, the hum of the main hall was different from the gala. There were no clinking glasses, no live band warming up. Just the murmur of hundreds of people finding seats, the shuffle of programs, the soft coughs and throat clears that came before scheduled speaking. Miguel peered through a narrow gap in the curtain. The chairs were nearly full. Teachers with lanyards, parents, therapists, a few kids with headphones or chewable necklaces, their legs swinging or feet bouncing. He stepped back. That is a lot of humans, he said. Elena checked her notes one last time, then closed the folder and set it aside. I am going to leave the podium after the introduction, she said. I want you in front, not me behind a stand. I do not do podiums anyway, he replied. Makes my back lock up. Lily and Lucas sat on 2 folding chairs in the corner, sneakers touching. They had been quiet during the last few minutes, saving their words. You two know the plan, Miguel said, crouching in front of them. They nodded in unison. Walk on stage, Lucas recited. You talk first, then you call us. We do the steps, then we leave if it gets too loud. If you need to leave sooner, you leave sooner, Miguel corrected gently. No one is keeping you up there. Lily traced a circle on the floor with the tip of her shoe. What if people clap too loud, she asked. We asked them to use soft claps, Elena answered from behind Miguel, or wave their hands, like this. She lifted both hands and rotated them in the air. Miguel and the kids followed. We can remind them again before you come on, she said. Lily tried the motion. Her hands made small circles, fingers spread. Feels like wind, she said. A stagehand in a black shirt poked his head through the curtain. 5 minutes, he said. Then the introduction video runs. You are up after that. Miguel's stomach tightened. He rubbed his palms on his pants. Elena placed a hand lightly on his arm. You have done harder things than talk in front of people who chose to be here, she said. He thought of hospital waiting rooms and supermarket aisles and long nights with a crying child and no one to tell him why. He nodded. Yeah, he said, I have. They moved closer to the entrance. From the other side of the curtain came the sound of microphones being tested. Welcome to Ballroom C, a voice announced. Our next session is one many of you have been looking forward to. Lucas bounced his foot. Lily pressed her headphones over her ears for a moment, then let them drop back to her neck. Miguel flexed his fingers once, twice. The lines in his palms caught the light from the overhead fixture. He shook out his shoulders and rolled his neck. Elena took a breath beside him. "Ready?" she asked. Miguel looked at her, then at the two kids, then at the thin slice of stage visible through the curtain. "As I will ever be," he said. The opening notes of the conference's introduction video drifted through the speakers, filling the hall with a low, steady hum. Backstage, 4 pairs of feet shifted into position. The lights in Ballroom C dimmed to the level they had agreed on. A quiet settled over the room as the last frames of the introduction video faded from the screen. The moderator at the podium thanked the audience, said a few words about lived experience and community practice, then announced their names. "Please welcome Elena Ward and Miguel Reyes from Quiet Steps." Polite hand waves rose across the hall, instead of applause fingers fluttering in the half-dark. It looked like a field of small trees moving in a light breeze. Backstage, Miguel exhaled. "Go," Elena murmured. They stepped onto the stage together. The floor under Miguel's shoes felt firmer than the hotel ballroom, covered in a thinner carpet. The lights were bright enough that he could see faces in the first few rows, but not so bright that he had to squint. The air smelled of coffee paper and the faint tang of electronics warming. They stopped at center stage. The podium stood off to the side and empty. Elena took the handheld microphone the moderator offered her. For a moment, the image of her in a gown under crystal flashed through Miguel's mind. Here she looked different, less polished, more real. "Good morning," she said. "I am Elena. I run a company that builds sound systems. Tonight you are not here for that. You are here because a lot of us live with sound we cannot control." A low ripple of recognition moved through the room. She turned slightly and gestured toward Miguel. "This is Miguel," she said. "You met him before some of you met me." A few people chuckled, remembering the clip. Miguel took the second microphone. It felt strange in his hand. He preferred using his body as his speaker. "Hi," he said. His voice came from the stage monitors at his feet, and from somewhere behind him, softer. "I am the guy who cleans up after events. And I am the guy in that video. But I am mostly a dad." He looked at the front row. A boy there flapped his hands once, then pressed them against his thighs. A woman beside him, likely his mother, watched with eyes that had seen a lot. When that clip went around, Miguel said people asked what training I have, what method that was. I did not have a name for it. He lifted his free hand palm open. "To me, it was just how I finally learned to listen to my kid," he said. He told the story without dressing it up. The cereal aisle, the couch kicks, the way he used to shout. The first time he tried sitting on the floor instead. He did not mention the gala by name. The room already knew that part. "I could talk all day," he said, "but I would rather show you how we move when words are too much." He turned his head toward the wings. "Lucas, Lily," he said into the mic, "whenever you are ready." 2 small figures appeared at the side of the stage. For a second, Lily hesitated in the shadow of the curtain. The edge of darkness cut across her shoes. Her hand brushed the fabric fingers, tracing a seam. Lucas stepped just ahead of her, not pulling, just standing where she could see him. She stepped forward. They walked to the center of the stage with unhurried steps. The room watched hundreds of pairs of eyes. The kids kept their gaze low on the floor on the line where the black stage ended and the front row began. Miguel lowered his microphone. He spoke to them without amplification. "Remember," he said, "this is your space. They are guests in your rhythm." Lucas's mouth twitched in a small grin. Lily's shoulders eased half an inch. They took their places. No music played. The sound techs had muted the background track on purpose. The only noise was the soft rustle of clothing and the occasional cough. Lily and Lucas faced each other. Their sneakers were a handspan apart. Lucas nodded once. Lily nodded back. They began with the simplest part. Left foot forward, right foot forward, left foot back, right foot back. 4 steps measured and even. Their arms hung loose at their sides, fingers slightly curled. On the second cycle, they added the hands. Lily raised her right hand palm facing Lucas. He mirrored with his left. Their hands did not touch. They moved in parallel arcs up and down, the motions matching in height and tempo. From the audience, it looked like 2 echoes meeting in the middle. Miguel felt his own muscles align with the pattern. His body remembered that hallway, the linoleum, the thin buzzing light, a smaller girl's hand in his. The kids shifted into the next part of their sequence. Side steps, 2 to the right, 2 to the left. Their feet crossed and uncrossed, careful but confident. Their hands changed shape. No longer simple waves, they traced gentle curves that interlocked two looping paths that threaded around each other and separated again. They did not smile. Their faces were serious, focused on the timing, on the feel of the floor under their shoes, on the space between them. In the third row, a child with curly hair leaned forward, eyes wide. His hands, which had been twisting the string of his hoodie, stilled to follow the pattern. Beside him, his father swallowed hard. On the left side of the hall, a woman in a badge marked OT lifted a hand to her mouth. Her other hand began copying the wave without her realizing it. The pattern on stage grew a little more complex. Lily and Lucas turned together so that they now faced the audience, shoulders aligned. They raised their arms in a slow, synchronized motion, sweeping forward as if gathering something unseen, then letting it go. Their fingers opened, then closed, then opened again. Their feet kept the bass rhythm. 4 counts, 2 steps, pause, 4 counts, 2 steps. The repetition held them steady as their upper bodies drew shapes in the air. The room stayed quiet. This was not a polished dance. There were no big jumps or dramatic spins. It was measured and small, built for nervous systems that did not want sudden surprises. That was part of what held attention. Every movement felt deliberate. In the front row, a boy wearing bright yellow headphones began to rock in his seat in time with their steps. His mother looked at him carefully, then let him move. In a side aisle, Gavin sat with his grandson. The boy's legs swung under his chair. His fingers drummed a quick pattern on his knees. He had a program folded into a long strip that he flicked back and forth. On stage, Lily stepped forward and back. Lucas matched. The boy's drumming slowed, trying to catch the stage rhythm. His gaze, which had been roaming the ceiling and the exit, settled on the 2 kids. Gavin watched his grandson's face, the way his jaw unclenched, the way his shoulders lowered a touch. He lifted his own hand almost without thinking and traced a small wave in the air at his side. Up, down, up, down. His grandson glanced at him, then at his hand, then back at the stage. The sequence reached its center. Lily and Lucas turned to face each other again. They stepped closer, toe tips almost touching. Their hands rose between them, palms facing, fingers spread. For 3 counts, they simply breathed, their hands hovering a few inches apart. No movement, no pattern, just presence. Miguel felt the hairs on his arms lift. On the 4th count, they let their palms meet very gently. Skin to skin, they did not clasp. They simply rested their hands together, creating a small shared plane between them. Then they bowed their heads, each bringing their forehead toward their joined hands until they almost touched. In the hall, someone drew in a sharp breath and let it out slowly. Others shifted the sound of fabric, a soft rush. The kids pulled back. They took 3 steps to the side away from each other, then circled back so that they stood shoulder to shoulder, both facing the audience. They lifted their arms one last time and drew a wide, slow arc across the air in front of them, as if clearing a space. Then they let their hands fall to their sides and went still. For a second, nothing happened. Then the hall filled with motion. Hands lifted, fingers fluttered, some waved in circles, some shook. A few clapped softly, despite the request for quiet, then caught themselves and shifted to waving instead. From the stage, it looked like another pattern, not random. Hundreds of small gestures, each different, all saying the same thing. Miguel's throat tightened. He stepped forward, microphone in hand again, but he did not speak right away. Lucas glanced up at him. Lily did too. "You can go backstage now," Miguel said softly, voice traveling through the speakers and back to their ears. "Or you can stay here a minute. You choose." Lily looked out at the sea of hands. Her own hand rose halfway, palm open, fingers relaxed. It was not a wave in the normal sense. It was more like placing her hand on invisible glass between her and them. Lucas copied her. They turned and walked calmly off stage. The audience kept their hands moving until the kids disappeared behind the curtain. Only then did some of them drop their arms, rubbing shoulders and wrists. Miguel faced the hall. "I did not choreograph that," he said. "They did. What you saw is how they talk when they do not have to use their mouths." He spoke for a few more minutes. He answered questions about overload, about mirroring, about how to know when to sit on a floor and when to call emergency services. He told a principal that making a quiet room did not mean you expected failure. It meant you planned for reality. He did not try to tidy his story into a neat shape. He left in the rough edges. Parents nodded when he admitted to yelling. Teachers nodded when he described not knowing what to do and doing the wrong thing first. When the moderator signaled that time was almost up, he finished with something simple. "Next time you see a kid hiding under a table or covering their ears," he said, "ask yourself what the room feels like to them before you ask what is wrong with them." He thanked the audience and stepped back. House lights lifted a fraction as the session ended. People stood stretching legs, moving toward the aisles, some wiping their faces, some already typing notes into their phones. In the side aisle, Gavin turned to his grandson. "What did you think?" he asked. The boy scrunched his nose, thinking. "Their steps made sense," he said. The room did not yell. Gavin nodded. "Do you want to go backstage and say hi?" he asked. The boy hesitated, then shook his head. "Too many people there," he said. "I want the quiet room." "Okay," Gavin said. "Quiet room it is." As they walked toward the door, the boy's hand brushed Gavin's. Gavin let his fingers curl just enough to be there, not enough to hold. Backstage behind the thick curtain, the noise of the hall was muted. The space smelled of dust and cables. Lily leaned against a black-painted wall, one hand on her chest. Her breathing was steady. Lucas sat on a crate, swinging his feet. "You did it," Miguel said, coming toward them. Lily's eyes met his. "We did the steps," she said. "The way we made them." Lucas grinned. They all watched, he added, and nobody yelled. Elena slipped in beside Miguel, shoulder brushing his. Her eyes were damp but clear. "They listened," she said. Miguel looked at the two kids at their hands, at the scuff marks on the stage floor behind them, where other performances had left their traces. "Yeah," he answered quietly. "They did." A stagehand called out the name of the next session into the wings. Footsteps echoed. Miguel glanced toward the corridor that led to the quiet room. "Come on," he said. "You two earned a softer place to sit for a while." The quiet room at the conference center had 2 windows and a door that closed with a soft latch. Miguel opened it and stepped aside so Lily and Lucas could go in first. The air inside was cooler than backstage, smelling faintly of fabric softener and crayons. Beanbags clustered in one corner. A low shelf held puzzles and picture books. One wall was painted a muted blue that made the room feel deeper than it was. Lucas headed straight for a bin of foam blocks and began stacking them into a tower. Lily walked around slowly, palm grazing the backs of chairs, fingertips testing the texture of a woven throw. She stopped at the window. Outside, the river slid past its surface flat and gray under the washed-out sky. Cars moved along the far bank in small, bright threads. Lily put her hand on the glass. It was cool. The faint vibration from the building hummed through it. Miguel watched her from a nearby chair. His body was starting to register its own tiredness. His feet ached from standing on the stage and pacing backstage. His throat felt dry from talking into a microphone. Elena sat beside him, shoulders slack against the chair back. The folder she had carried all morning lay unopened on her lap. "You were good up there," she said quietly. He snorted once. "I forgot half of what I planned to say," he replied. "Which half?" she asked. "The part where I was going to sound smart," he said. She turned her head toward him. "You sounded like someone who had been where they are," she said. "That is what they came for." He did not argue. Lily left the window and came to stand in front of them, one hand twisting the fabric of her dress. "Can we go home?" she asked. "Soon," Elena said. "Do you want to stay for lunch here or eat at home?" "Home," Lily answered without hesitation. "Home works," Miguel said. "Lucas will vote the same." He glanced at his son, whose tower had reached his chin. "Hey," Miguel called. "We are heading out." Lucas placed one last block on top of the stack and stepped back. "Did they like it?" he asked. "The steps," Lily added. Miguel thought of the moving hands in the hall, the still faces, the quiet after the last arc. "They watched," he said. "They listened. That is what matters." Lucas nodded, as if ticking off an item on an internal list. He knocked his own tower over with a sweep of his arm. The blocks fell in a muffled, satisfying tumble. On the sidewalk outside the conference center, the air carried the damp chill of early spring. Traffic hissed on wet pavement. Pigeons huddled near a grate. They walked together toward the parking garage. Elena's car was not far. She had parked on a lower level, close to the elevator, planning for tired feet. The concrete smelled of oil and rain. Miguel opened the back door so the kids could climb in. Lily took the seat behind Elena, Lucas behind Miguel. They both clicked their seatbelts with practiced motions. Elena started the engine and turned the fan to low. The radio stayed off. For a while they drove in silence. The city slid by outside the windows, all steel and glass and old brick. A billboard flashed a commercial for something loud and bright. Another advertised a hospital with a pale, clean lobby. At a red light, Elena glanced at Miguel. "Did you see the message from the conference coordinator?" she asked. "Not yet," he said. "My phone has been in my pocket since we walked on stage." "She says people are already asking for your slides," Elena told him. "And for the sequence the kids did." "They can have the slides," he said. "The steps belong to them." Lily leaned forward between the front seats. "They can copy the idea," she said, "not the exact order." "Like recipes," Lucas added. "You can share ingredients, but you change the flavors." Miguel caught Elena's eye and saw the small smile there. Exactly, she said. They turned onto a smaller street lined with trees that had not yet leafed out. Branches made a dark lace against the sky. Miguel's apartment building came into view first, a squat structure of tan brick 4 stories tall. Elena pulled into the curb. Pizza night, Lucas declared from the back seat. We had pizza 2 nights ago, Miguel said. We danced on a stage today, Lucas replied. That calls for more pizza. Miguel thought of the week's budget of laundry to do and bills to sort. He also thought of his son's face under the stage lights, serious and sure. I will pick one up from the corner place, he said. Plain cheese. We can add things from home. Lily unclipped her belt. Can we come up? She asked Elena. Elena hesitated for a second. Not because she did not want to, but because old habits still nudged her toward schedules and lists. Yes, she said, if Miguel does not mind. Miguel opened his door. Come on, he said. I will trade you pizza for help carrying laundry. Upstairs, the apartment felt smaller, with all 4 of them inside, but not cramped. The living room held the couch, a low table, and shelves with books and boxes of Lego. The kitchen was just big enough for 1 person to work in, comfortably 2 if they had known each other a long time. Lily went straight to the window. The view here was of the alley and the side of another building, but she did not seem to mind. Birds moved along the roofline. A line of laundry flapped 2 floors up. Lucas opened the Lego bin and sat on the floor, spreading pieces out in a loose circle. Miguel took coins from a jar and shoved them into his pocket. I will be back in 10 minutes, he said. Try not to rebuild the entire city while I am gone. Lucas grinned. No promises, he said. Elena followed Miguel to the door. I can pay for the pizza, she offered. He shook his head. You got the last one, he said. Besides, this place only trusts me with exact change. She smiled and let him go. In his absence, the apartment settled into a different rhythm. Elena sat on the couch and watched Lily and Lucas negotiate a shared build without words. Lily made a line of blue pieces that curved and doubled back. Lucas added red in a grid that intersected the curve at regular intervals. Roads and rivers, he explained when he noticed Elena watching. Hers is the river. And your part, Elena asked. Streets, he said. They cross, but they do not tell the river where to go. Lily looked up. The river moves first, she said. Elena leaned back, eyes stinging for a reason that had nothing to do with tiredness. Miguel returned with the pizza box warm against his forearms. The smell of tomato and cheese filled the small kitchen as he opened it on the counter. They ate at the low table, paper towels for plates, knees nearly touching. Lucas shook dried oregano over his slice. Lily picked a piece of crust apart and lined the fragments in a row before tasting any. They talked some about the conference, some about school, some about nothing important at all. The kind of talk that fills a room without crowding it. Later, when the sun tilted lower and the alley outside turned gold at the edges, Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It is the Riverside, she said, the hotel. Miguel raised an eyebrow. Another gala, he guessed. Something like that, she replied. She answered, listened, then put the call on speaker so Miguel could hear. This is Elena, Ms. Ward. Thank you for returning the call, the event manager said. We are planning our annual staff appreciation night at the Riverside Grand. After everything that happened last year, our general manager wondered if you and Mr. Reyes might be willing to help us make it more inclusive. Lighting sound may be a short demonstration. Miguel looked across the table at Elena. You do know he already works there, she said lightly. He could run the whole thing. The manager laughed. We would like him to be a guest this time, she said, not staff. After the call ended, Miguel stared for a moment at his own hands. I have never gone into that ballroom not holding a mop, he said. That can change, Elena said, if you want it to. He thought about it, then nodded once. Only if the chandeliers stay at 50%, he said. 40, Lily cut in. 50 is too much. Miguel smiled. 40, he agreed, non-negotiable. The evening stretched. Elena and Lily left when the sky had turned violet, and the first stars were faint over the city. Miguel walked them down to the street. Lucas leaned out the window to wave as they drove away. Back upstairs, the apartment felt quieter, but not empty. Lucas yawned wide, then insisted he was not tired. Miguel sent him to brush his teeth. He stood by the window for a moment, looking at the rectangle of sky. A plane moved across it, a small, steady light. His phone buzzed on the table again. A message from the conference coordinator. Thank you, it read. People are still talking in the halls, not about the video, about what they want to change back home. He set the phone face down. In the days that followed, life did not swing into some new glossy version of itself. There were still bills piled on the counter. Floors still needed to be mopped at odd hours. Lily still had days when she could not tolerate the sound of her own zipper, no matter how planning went. Quiet steps kept its space. New faces kept arriving. Some left after one session, some stayed. Months later, on a warm night, when the river outside the Riverside Grand reflected neon and broken ribbons, 4 figures stood in the ballroom after an event had ended. The staff appreciation night had gone well. The chandeliers had stayed at 40%. The music had been chosen with care. There had been a short segment where Miguel spoke, and Lily and Lucas demonstrated a short version of their steps for the people who washed dishes and checked coats and cleared plates. Now the guests had gone. The last trays had been rolled away. The band had packed up. The room was almost empty. Miguel stood near the center with a broom held lightly in his hand, not using it, just letting it rest against his shoulder. His eyes tracked the way the dimmed light hit the floor. Elena walked back in from the hallway, heels clicking softly. "They are closing the side doors," she said. "We have a few minutes." Lily and Lucas drifted in behind her. Without the crowd, the space felt bigger, but less intense. The air was cooler. The lingering scents were mild. The hum of the air conditioning took up the corners. Lily stepped onto the polished wood and looked up at the chandeliers. Their crystals caught the low light and sent small, gentle flares across the ceiling. Lucas stood beside her. Miguel watched them both. "Do you want to try it here?" he asked. "Just us." Lily glanced at him, then at Elena, then back at the center of the room. "Yes," she said. They walked out onto the floor. The wood reflected their shapes in faint, blurred streaks. Miguel and Elena followed, stopping a few feet away. "No cameras," Elena said. "No one to impress." Lily and Lucas faced each other. The basic pattern needed no introduction now. Their feet knew it. Their bodies fell into the rhythm with the ease of repetition. Left foot forward, right foot forward, left back, right back, hands rising and falling in slow, soft arcs. Miguel felt his chest ease as he watched. The ballroom, which had once been a place of panic and judgment, now held something else. Not perfection, not magic. Just a pair of kids using the space on their own terms. On the second cycle, Lily looked over her shoulder at him. "Come on," she said. "You too." Lucas grinned. "Group grid," he said. Miguel hesitated only a second before stepping forward with Elena at his side. They took places on either end of the line. The kids had made 4 bodies forming a loose square. Lily moved her hand, and Elena copied. Lucas stepped to the side, and Miguel matched. There were small missteps and quiet laughter. Lily adjusted their timing with a tilt of her head. They found a shared rhythm. At one point, Lily reached out without looking and caught Miguel's fingers. On the other side, Lucas brushed Elena's hand. The 4 of them stood briefly connected, a rough circle of palms and knuckles and calluses and smooth skin. The air in the ballroom felt less heavy. From the balcony above, one of the night staff leaned on the rail for a moment, watching. He smiled to himself and moved on lights to check doors to lock. On the floor, the 4 figures kept moving. Their hands traced familiar waves. Their feet marked out a pattern that belonged to them, laid down over the polished surface like invisible ink. The lights stayed at 40%. Outside, the river slid past in the dark. Inside, the room held a new memory layered over the old. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.